Hello everyone, and welcome to Debonair Cyber. My name is Devin, and in today's video, we have finally done it. This is the final machine in the Intro to Red Team track in Hackbox. In this final machine, called Administrator, the second medium box in the track, we're going to be doing a lot more Active Directory. I really feel like this machine does a good job of kind of simulating what a real environment looks like. This one will have you going through and enumerating and finding some new credentials and using those in another place and spraying those across a bunch of different usernames, this type of thing. More like like I said, what you would see in more of a real life pen test. So with all that being said, let's get started. All right, with all that out of the way, I think we are ready to get started here. We have our machine pulled up, Administrator, 10.10.11.42, and we can see here as well, similar to the most recent box that we did, you can see that there is a set of user credentials here that you will need to actually get started on this machine. Again, this is a common thing where people don't really pay attention to this machine information tab. It's not always here, but when it is, you really do need these credentials to actually get started. So we'll click to copy this IP and we'll bring it over here. I'm going to go ahead and use the pawn box for the last machine in this series. I think that's a very fitting end to the Intro to Red Team track. So what I have done here is get us set up with a directory specific to this machine, and I have actually gone ahead and copied my favorite nmap script over from the My Data section. If you want to see this, you can go to the most recent video on the Intro to Red Team track and learn more about the My Data sections in the Hack the Box Pwn box. I won't do that all again here. So I'm going to CD over into Administrator, and we can have this nmap script here. I'm going to use nano, and we will actually modify this script so we can see that this is going to run an initial nmap script of all ports with a min rate of 1000. Going to ignore pings and go pretty quick on the actual scan itself on the timing, and then we will actually paste in that IP 10.10.11.42. And basically what this is going to do is clean up the output to where we can save it into this variable called ports, and then put that variable into the actual ports parameter in the following command, where we're going to once again ignore pings. We're going to run some normal scripts, service detections, and then output to all file types. We're going to name those files administrator. And then we will once again paste in that IP. We'll save that, and then all we have to do is run that script. Now, if you were to actually run this on your machine locally with the sudo command in the second portion, unless you already have put in a sudo command, once in that terminal session, it will ask you for the password halfway through. But as you can see here, this will continue to run even after, just because of how the pwn box is set up. So we're going to let this run for just another couple seconds, and we'll be right back. All right, so that didn't take too long for that results to come back. So we can see here, very interesting right off the get-go, is that we have this open FTP server on this machine. 53 and 88 open right next to each other. That is DNS and Kerberos. Pretty much a dead giveaway here, once again, that we're dealing with some type of Windows domain controller. And then once again, you go down a little bit further, you got Active Directory, LDAP, and the domain is being broadcast here, administrator.htb. One more quick thing that I like to point out on these types of scans in particular is that when we go down here to the SMB2 security mode, we can see that the message signing is enabled and required, meaning that we will not be able to perform any kind of relay attacks off of this SMB server. So really, before we get much further, I do want for us to actually add this IP address into our etc host file. Whoops. 10.10.11.42 in my case, and we want this to be called administrator .htb, and we can pipe that to the t command with sudo -a because we want to append to the etc hosts file. And don't forget, if you don't hit that attack A, you will completely overwrite your host file. And just as a sanity check here, we can tail etc hosts and see that we did indeed get that 10.10.11.42 administrator.htb appended to the end of the file. Basically, this is just going to allow us to be able to call this machine by its fully qualified domain name administrator.htb instead of having to enter the IP every time we want to call to it. So the very first thing that's actually calling to me straight off the rip here from this nmap scan is this port 21. This FTP server is accepting, is open, accepting connections, and we have a set of credentials. So really, that says to me that's kind of the first place that I want to check. And it might be that that doesn't really turn anything up, but that is where my brain immediately goes. So now that we have these credentials, we can bring up the help command, accidentally, I guess, on the FTP tool. So we can see here that we can just do user at host. And the default port is fine in this particular case, so we can go back and grab this Olivia user right here, and we can just say FTP Olivia at administrator.htb. This is going to prompt us for the password, which we can go back and grab this weird little string here, copy that, and we'll paste it in. And we can see the login is actually failed. User cannot log in, home directory inaccessible. So there it is. The wild hair is plucked, but anytime you see that, you want to at least try it, right? Same thing with SMB here. We could go and actually enumerate through that SMB server, see what kind of credentials we might, see what kinds of shares that we might have access to, and really quickly, you might as well netexec SMB, and we can use the user, Olivia, and the password, this weird thing. And let's just see what shares we have. You know, it really helped if you actually put in the IP here. 42. There we go. See, that works when you do it the right way. But we can also see that we do actually authenticate successfully, and that we have these normal shares available. Nothing really interesting here to this user, but at least we checked. So at this point now, what I really want to do is begin some initial domain enumeration. A couple things that I like to do right off the gate is Bloodhound and LDAP domain dump. If you watched the most recent video on the channel, these things will be very familiar to you. You may even be able to skip ahead and do these commands on your own if you remembered or took good notes from the last one. So what I want to do here is actually make a directory for our Bloodhound output. And we'll cd over into that. All right, so here we're going to run this Bloodhound ingester, Bloodhound Python on the, I believe it's on Kali and on Parrot. User Olivia, enter that password. The domain is administrator.htb. The name server 10.10.11.42. And finally, we want to run all checks that Bloodhound Python, this ingester, can actually run. And we'll let this go. Pretty quick there. We can also see here at the end of this output that we have the fully qualified domain name of dc.administrator.htb. We might be actually a good idea for us to add this to the etc hosts file. So we can actually do that really quick. Sudo nano etc hosts, and come down here, dc.administrator.htb, and then go ahead and put that can at the end. That way we can call it from either one. Same IP. All right, and now we can see that we actually have these put into a JSON file, and we can sudo zip those up into bh output.zip and do *JSON because they all have the same extension. And we can see they put that into a zip file here. And from here on the pawn box, Really simple. All we have to do is call Bloodhound, and this will actually run the Neo4j server for us and bring up the GUI front end. Again, this is just a really nice implementation of Bloodhound, especially compared to the sysadmin work that has to be put in on the back end, or on the on Kali when you go to run the local Bloodhound like this. The username and password here are Neo4j, both of them, and this will log us in. Now, ouch, eyes, enable dark mode, and we can go and upload our data that we just grabbed, home, administrator, BH output, and put in that zip file. This will actually unzip everything for us and import all of the data pretty quickly. We can clear finish. Now, to do our initial enumeration, we can actually come in here and search for Olivia. This is the user that we have credentials for, and we can actually mark this as owned. All right, so from here, we really need to back out of the Bloodhound output, and then we can actually make a new directory for LDAP domain dump. CD over there. And now we can actually run LDAP domain dump. That command is going to look like this. We're going to do LDAP domain dump, specify the user. Now we do have to actually include the domain with the username in this particular case. Just how LDAP domain dump expects for the argument to be put in. Enter that password and the host name, which we've already put in as the hosts. So we'll call it like so. And we can see here that we have these domain computers, users, groups, all kinds of stuff in many different file formats. But what we can do from here, just to give us a little bit more familiarity with the environment, is go in and open up this domain users. So we can go ahead and open up this domain users HTML file, and we can really just do this from Firefox. Make it nice and easy. .html. And we can see here that we have a full list of users in the environment, including our Olivia user that we own here. And we can see that some of these actually are in remote management, including Olivia herself, meaning that we may even be able to get a shell on this machine if we really felt like we needed to. Other than that, though, from this view, we don't really see anything terribly interesting. But again, it is important for us to come in and actually understand what users are in here. And even sometimes you might even be able to go look in this description field and see where some secrets are being held occasionally. So that's a good thing to know too. Very easy way to find that out. And from here, we can go back into Bloodhound and begin our investigation. So similar to some of the paths we found in the last machine, we can come down here to this outbound object control, and so that we do actually have a first degree object control over this Michael user. We can see here that we have generic all privileges, and once again, as in the last video, we can right click and view the help page and what we might be able to do from Linux here. Bloodhound has this really nice help menu here where we have shadow credentials. We can force change the password, or we can do a targeted curb roast. Any of these attacks would be viable against this target. In this particular case, we are going to use the force change password. All right, so from here we know that we want to force change the password. We have a couple of commands here that we could try from Bloodhound. If you watched my last video, I am pretty partial on using a tool called Bloody AD. Here in Parrot and on Kali, it's on the actual repo. You can use apt to install Bloody AD, but here in Parrot, we can just use pip to do the exact same thing. If you do pip install Bloody AD just like this, you'll install it pretty quickly, and then it will be available to us. I'm gonna Control C out of that, clear my screen here, and then back out of the current domain. So we can actually use Bloody AD now because it is installed. We can see these this small help menu, and then we have these context menus from here. So the command syntax for this command looks pretty simple, and this is really why I like using it. It's really intuitive to use. We'll just use bloody AD. We'll specify the host administrator.htb because we have it again in our etc host file. Enter that username and password for the user that has the object control. And then we want to set password for the Michael user, again, because we got it over here in Bloodhound, to something super secure, like password 123. And we can see here that the password is changed successfully. Now, because we know that Michael is also in the remote management users, we should be able to actually log in as this user using something like evilwinrm. So again, this command syntax is pretty simple. Evilwinrm -I for the IP address 10.10.11.42 user Michael and that password that we just entered. CD over into desktop. But unfortunately, from here we don't actually have another user flag. So I guess it's back to the drawing board. But one thing we need to do from here, though, now that we've changed this password, is mark this user as owned. And then, guess what? We get to do some more enumeration. So right here from from Bloodhound, we want to once again go through these and make sure we're not missing anything. And I'm beginning to notice a common theme here. If we look once again at this first degree of object control, we can actually see that Michael has the force change password over this Benjamin user. It's almost like Hack the Box is trying to tell us something. Permissions are important. Anyway, this becomes super simple. Once again, we can just yes to exit out of this, and literally bloody AD will help us. Once again, we just change out these credentials for Michael's credentials now because we know those because we changed them. So we can do password 123, and then guess what? We can do the exact same thing for Benjamin over here. And you know what? I like this password so much, we're just going to leave it exactly the same. So we can see here that this password was also changed successfully. A lot of password changing around here. But we can now see the Benjamin user. If we come back over to our handy dandy chart, is in share moderators. That should get your wheels turning a little bit. We didn't really go through this before, but it would have been a good idea for us to actually enumerate a little bit further with this Michael user and see what type of permissions that we gained elsewhere. So in other words, we could have gone back to FTP, we could have gone back to SMB just like we did with the first user, and see, just make this iterative process over and over again of once we get new credentials, we need to check all those credentials and all the places that we have access to see what might be different, what might be new, um, what we what we may have missed the first time around, right? But in particular, knowing that this Benjamin user is in the share moderators group, that is an immediate flag for me saying, hey, we need to kind of go back and see if we can go through either FTP or SMB, one of these, and just see what's available, right? So we can come back over here into our handy dandy net exec and see what shares we have available. It doesn't look like we have any other shares here, but if we remember all the way back to the beginning, we do have this FTP server open. So what I want to do now is FTP Benjamin at administrator.htb. And it's going to ask us for that password. We're going to enter our super secure password 123. And we can see that this user is logged in. And we can see a fun little file here called backup. So when you're working with FTP, it is really as simple as using get, and then we can specify that file name backup.psafe3, and that will actually download to our local machine. And then we can just exit ls, and we can see that we have now a copy of this backup.psafe3. Now I don't immediately recognize this file extension, so what I'm actually going to do is just try to copy this, and we'll bring it over into Google and see what they have to say about it. So Google is telling us here that we have this psafe3 is a file extension used by the password safe application for its database files. So we actually have a copy of a password manager's database, which immediately thinks that, hey, I might want to try to crack this. But how do we do that? And sometimes it really is just as simple as saying, hey, I want to try to crack this with hashcat, and saying, hey, there's a mode for that. So the command for that is going to look something like this, hashcat-m. We can see right over here, 5200 is what we're going to be looking for. In this particular case, we're going to be using the backup.psafe3 file, and then we will use the rocku list. Share word list rocku. Oh, we have to actually unzip that. So if you haven't actually done this on the either your Kali machine or on Parrot, really quickly with this GZ file extension, we can actually use a G unzip. So we can do sudo G unzip, and we can do user share word lists and rocku, and that will unzip that file so that now we can come back in here, copy this command without the GZ this time, and this should run. We're going to let this run for a little bit and we'll be right back. All right, and pretty quickly we can see that this backup.psafe3 file comes back with a cracked hash. Te quiero mucho. We love it. All right, so here's a fun thing that you can actually do. Now that we have the password for the file, we know that it belongs to the password safe binary, and that we know that this is a database file. We have the password for it and everything. This is actually the support page for Password Safe, where you can find that, hey, this is actually a tool made by Bruce Schneier, a great technologist and security person, has lots of books. You should go read them. We have versions for Windows and Linux, but before you go fussing around with the GitHub or SourceForge or anything like that, you can make this really easy on yourself just by saying sudo apt install password safe, just like this. Whoops. And just like that, we have this is in the actual Kali repo, or sorry, Parrot OS repo in this case. Not sure if it's in Kali or not, but once it is downloaded, you can just call this pwsafe, and this will bring up the GUI, which is awesome. So now we get to look for the psafe3. We can open that, and then we enter that password. But see, you were definitely a lot smarter than me, and remember to actually put those in a notes document because you're not trying to rush through anything. And you're taking really good notes the entire time. So we'll put this password in, and we'll click OK. And now we have these three usernames here, usernames that we know are actually usernames on this system, right? So now that we have these, we can actually just click this password button and see that we have the password copied. We can also right click and see that we can copy the username to clipboard. Use it as a QR code, which is really interesting. So now what I want to do from here really is set up two files. One is going to be for usernames exclusively. So we can see here we have Alexander, we have Emily, and we have Emma, right? So those will go in the first file, and then we can actually save that. All right, so now that we have this file set up, we can go in and save this to our administrator, and we're just going to call this users.txt, and then make a new file and paste in the right order. Remember, these passwords, really, I guess it doesn't really matter. What we can do though, copy password. Yep, and one more time. One more time. Okay, and we want to save as. And back in our administrator folder, we want to call this passwords. Oh my goodness. passwords.txt. All right, cool. Now what do we do with those? We still have our password safe open here. All right. So now we've just made two sets of files, right? We have a users file and we have a passwords file. Really, we could also add the credentials that we already know that we have, like the Michael user, we have the Olivia user that we started with, and there's one other one that we changed passwords for, right? Technically, we could add all of those into here and see where these passwords might work. In this particular case, we're just going to try and see what we have. Increase the size of this terminal just a little bit, make it easier, but we'll cd into administrator here, and we can see that we have these two files, passwords and users. We can actually use netexec with smb and 10.10.11.42, and we can actually specify with the capital characters users.txt and capital P passwords. And just for funsies, we can hit shares. We can see that this is actually going to begin. All right, my bad here. So actually you need lowercase u and lowercase p. But we can see here that this will actually begin to spray all of our passwords across all of our users. So you can see Alexander is going to try this, Erky, and then Emily, Erky, and then Emma, and then Erky, right? So we see the same password going through over and over again with different users until eventually we get a hit on Emily, and we can see that this one does successfully authenticate. Now, this stops because we didn't tell it to continue, right? That is as simple as saying, hey, just continue on success. This last argument here. And this will just continuously spray. So we can see here that we do actually have valid credentials to the environment with Emily and this particular password here. So what we can do is just copy those and put them into our handy little document here with passwords that we know are true. So Emily with this particular password, and then really once again, what I want to try to do is make this an iterative process, right? We can copy FTP Emily at administrator. We have that password copied. User cannot log in. So now we know, right? All right, so here comes the iterative process, right? So we know here that we have the shares. We know that we don't have any particularly interesting shares that we didn't already have access to. We know that we can't log in through FTP. What are the other things that we have here, right? We can go back into our users and look at Emily in particular and see, hey, we have remote management users. We haven't done evil WinRM yet. So let's do that. Evil WinRM, and then we do I 10.10.11.42 user Emily, and this long crazy complex password that we found earlier that's in our notes file. So I'm making this more complicated than I have to. Copy that, paste it in, and we can see that we do actually get a shell. So we can cd back out into the desktop, and now we have our user.txt. But we are not done yet, friends. We still have the privilege escalation, and there is one aspect of this iterative process that we have not yet done, and we need to take it back to Bloodhound, where we go and actually find our Emily user. We can actually search up here, Emily at administrator.htb, and once again mark this user as owned. Now, if this box has taught us anything so far, it's that we need to come in here and actually check to see if there are any outbound object controls. So we can see here that this Bloodhound output is telling us that, hey, the Emily user has generic write privileges over the Ethan user, right? So if we were to come in here and do this help Linux abuse, we can get this targeted Kerberos attack, right? Can be performed. Tool automatically attempt targeted Kerberos attack either on all users or against a specific one. So we can come in here and actually download this tool. So we can just copy this, come back into our terminal here, and git cloned that. And we can see here that if we were to actually call that targeted Kerberos, it comes in straight out of the box, able to run on Parrot anyway. This is going to need some command line arguments. We're going to do DC IP 10.10.11.41. Going to use the request user after we do the actual username of Emily, right? Because that's the one that we have here. User Emily. This really crazy long password, once again, don't think I have it. Copy. Come back over to the terminal. Paste that password in. And request user. And we want to request Ethan because that is the one that is pointed out here. And we can see that it's going to start doing these Kerberos attacks. It helps a lot if you actually do the correct IP. I was so used to doing 41 from the last video. Here we go. All right, now we can see fully qualified domain is needed to fetch domain information. Cool. We can actually specify that domain here, -d. I'm just making a mess out of this command right now, but it is okay. We're all learning, friends. Administrator, HTTP. All right, now, finally, we get here. KRB error skew. The clock skew is too great. We can see, once again, that our Kerberos likes to be a pain because it actually matters what time is on the server. So we get to use a fun tool called NTB date. You're familiar with this if you watched it, if you watched my most recent video. But basically, we want to do NTP date. Most of the time, we use B to actually force, and then the IP of the server that you want to sync your clock to. Right? Oh, we need sudo because it doesn't like it. Sudo. There we go. Now we can see the clock. The time is stepped. And we will try this one more time. Hey, that looks like some gobbledygook here. And we have a KRB5 ticket here for what? The Ethan user, right? On administrator. Oof. So we know that this is a hash, right? Meaning that it can probably be cracked, or at least we can attempt to crack it. One of my favorite resources to go through here is Hashcat, right? And we used it earlier in this box, right? So we can do the Hashcat examples. So we can actually come over here to the Hashcat examples page, right? I had to open this in another tab in my actual browser instead of in the actual VM here. But what we're going to do is take this very beginning part here, right? Just actually a little bit more than that. We can do the 23, the very beginning here. Take this over to the example hashes, Control F, Control V, and we can see here that we have a Kerberos 5. We should be able to, with this 13100, actually attempt to crack this password hash. So we can take this, copy, and then once again bring this. Well, actually, we'll need to copy this hash, right? And put it into a file before we can really do anything with it. We'll open a new tab here, paste this in file, save as, make sure we're in our working directory administrator, and we want to save this as ethan.hash. Okay, cool. Hashcat, here we come, mode 13100, and we want to specify ethan.hash. Make sure we back out. Hashcat. Try it one more time. We just practice makes perfect, you know. Hashcat M13100 ethan.hash. And then we use that rocku share word lists rocku that we used earlier. Okay, and we're gonna let this run for a second. And we can actually see after a few seconds here that this rocku.txt does actually come up with a legitimate password, limp biscuit. Copy. Because we have a new set of credentials, we want to come back over here to our little makeshift notes file, and we'll say Ethan has a favorite band, Limp Bizkit, right? Now, what do we do from here? We could go through and, once again, FTP, SMB, right? Those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about. Well, we're going to see if we can get another shell here. We could even go back if we didn't want to do that first and go to check and see what this Ethan, see, member of no groups here. So this is interesting. So now finally, I hope you actually did go through and go through the motions of the FTP, SMB. Practice makes perfect. And going through that enumeration every single time you pick up a new set of credentials really is important. It really makes the difference between missing something and having that methodology every time you get a new set of credentials is crucial. And especially like, hey, if you have multiple systems, are you spraying those all the sets of credentials that you have across every set of devices that you have, right? So it's using something like netexec or FTP if those are open, right? SMB is extremely common in many especially Windows environments, right? So using tools like that to spray your known passwords, the ones that you know you can, and even the ones you don't know, spraying every password you have across every username you have, password reuse, those types of things are very prevalent in especially in these CTF type of environments, right? But we are here once again in Bloodhound after supposedly checking FTP, SMB, netexec, all those different types of things, and we can see here we're on the Ethan at administrator.htb user here. And I hope you beat me to it this time, honestly. But if we scroll down to the outbound object control, we scroll down into the first degree object control, and we can see here, I'm gonna straighten this out a little bit, but this very top one should be screaming at you at this point. DC sync means that we have the ability as the Ethan user to pull all of the hashes from this domain controller using secrets dump. This privilege effectively means that we would be able to pull the administrator hash and then from there use that hash to use a pass the hash attack to get the administrator account. And once again, Bloodhound is going to help us out a lot here with this Linux abuse. This is going to immediately tell us, hey, yeah, we need to come in here and do secrets dump. This is going to tell you all the syntax, and then you just win, right? So once again, just in case you didn't have, this Bloodhound output kind of telling you what the syntax is, you can come over here to your Parrot terminal, or in Kali. In Kali, they're called a little bit differently. You have to put mpacket in front of any of the mpacket tools, but it still works the same way. So secretsdump.py here on Parrot, and we can have this full output here of positional arguments and all these different things that we may be able to use, may need to use in some cases. So reading this help menu is once again very important. All right, so for all the marbles here, right, we have secretsdump.py, administrator.htb/Ethan. This is the actual username, right, with the domain, and then after the @ symbol, we include the host name. This is going to ask us for the password. We enter, and then we will actually do a full domain dump on this domain controller, giving us all of the hashes that are available in this environment. Now, all we have to do from here is copy this NT portion of the NTLM hash, right? And evil WinRM for the win. We'll do I 10 10 11 42 user administrator and password, -H for that administrator hash. We can see we are in as the administrator. Go back out to the desktop and get your root.txt. So guys, I don't know about you, but I have had a blast going through the Intro to Red Team track with all of you. I've learned a ton throughout this process about, not only hacking, but about content creation, and then really just having a lot of fun with making these videos. And I hope that y'all get some value out of it. I hope that you learn some things along with me, even if it's just like, hey, I wouldn't have used a specific tool that way, or leave a comment below and tell me maybe something different that you would have thought about doing in one of these boxes, right? Or in this one in particular, go to some of my other videos. But most importantly, hey, if you're enjoying the content here, please don't forget, like and subscribe. Thanks for learning along with me on this. Honestly, it's been so much fun, and I can't wait to do more. I'll see y'all soon.